Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Talkin' Tunes. I am your host, Frank Walsh, and ladies and gentlemen, in keeping with the tradition that I've been trying to hold for the last several months, you have seen some great performers on this show. But today, not to be outdone, I have a gentleman to my right who is a legend in the Boston music scene. He is a man who is one of the most respected musicians, one of the most liked musicians, a man who has a history as long as my arm. And as I had said before, the disadvantage of the show is that it's only a half hour, so we could run out of time just talking about his accolades. But to give you a little quick history, guitar virtuoso, one of the original folks from the House of Blues, featured on many radio stations, written, produced 4 CDs, and to top it off, has an honorary doctorate from Harvard University as a doctor of blues. So this gentleman does not have royalty in his name for nothing. So I give you the great pleasure of meeting Mr. Ricky King Russell. Ricky.
Frank.
Welcome aboard, man.
So nice to be here with you today.
Welcome aboard. As you know, I've been a lover of your music for a long time, and I have asked you a few times to come on, and I was so thrilled when you finally said that you would come on.
Glad to get over here and be with you today on Smack TV.
Great. For you folks at home, you one or two who may not know who this gentleman is, Ricky, why don't you take a second or two, look into that camera, and tell the folks at home a little bit about Ricky King Russell.
Okay. I've been playing guitar since I was a kid. Well, I just had celebrated my 63rd birthday, which Frank was so nice to join us in celebrating. And I've been playing guitar since I was a kid, since I was 10, so that makes it now 53 years that I've had the guitar in my hands. Played all kinds of music, but the blues is my deepest love. I started listening to the blues when I was a kid, lucky enough to have a older sibling whose boyfriend, for whatever reason, decided it was good to like blues music in the 50s. So there's a phenomena in the radio world, and especially on AM radio, that well, AM radio in the 50s used to broadcast on radio stations from sunup to sundown.
Correct.
And after sundown, when the local radio station would shut off, that frequency would be empty. There would be nothing there. And if another big radio station that had a powerful signal occupied that same sort of general frequency range, there would be a phenomena that's called skip, where the radio station signal bounces off the ionosphere. Where I'm going with this is that you would be able to hear radio stations from a far distance away, and he was lucky enough to hear Hoss Allen in Nashville, who played nothing but blues, black African-American, music. And so for whatever reasons, in the mid-50s, he went out and searched out the records that he heard on the radio, and I was lucky enough as a child in my living room to hear John Lee Hooker and Jimmy Reed and Ray Charles, and then of course Elvis Presley, who was pretty bluesy in his day. And so I was the youngest sibling, and if your older siblings are dancing and having a good time with this certain kind of music, then it certainly gets your attention. So it got my attention pretty early on.
Now, which came first? I know that you had the family members playing and you were listening and hearing that music, but did you just start playing it and then feel it, or were you feeling it first before you started to play it?
Yeah, I was feeling it before I was playing it. I knew it was there, but then as everything happened, the Beatles came along. And actually, to be honest with you, I was listening to guys on the radio in the early 60s. AM radio was the big thing, and
Yep.
I was definitely into that. And we all had our first little transistor radio, which was a pretty great thing at the time. And so I was hearing, Gary and the U.S. Bonds, which were from New Orleans, and Cosimo Matassa production, and Fats Domino and stuff like that, very fat sounding. And I thought, so like when I first heard the Beatles, it sort of took a minute to sort of hear it, because it was kind of thin and twangy and very British sounding, you know what I mean? But of course, it certainly didn't take long, especially after that February day in 1964 when on the Ed Sullivan Show. But I didn't have an instrument at the time, so it was funny. Me and my other 2 cousins would, at any family event, somebody had the tennis racket. That was immediately the guitar. And you know what I mean? We'd have our little Beatle wigs that you bought at the 5 and 10 cent store, and we'd put on these little shows in the doorway of the living room. That was our stage. And
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And then by the time, let's say, I don't know, 63, 64 rolled around, I started taking guitar lessons from the neighborhood guy, quarter a lesson at the YMCA, and started down the road.
And the rest is history.
A lot of history.
When did you start, getting out and playing in public? I know it takes a while to become an overnight success.
It certainly does. I grew up in urban areas as a kid, and
from around Boston. I meant to ask you that. You're a local kid.
I'm pretty much a local guy. If you would have pointed a part of Boston, I've probably lived in it. But I started performing with a band. Let's say my first band, the Days and Nights, and we would go to the dance at St. Polycarp's in Somerville. I grew up in a housing project on Mystic Ave for a while. And,
wow.
Polycarp's was the dance on Saturday night. I'd play cards in the hallway in the afternoon to make money to go to the dance at night.
Very cool.
A hustler from the get-go, dude.
Very cool. So when did you get that first big break? When did someone come up and say, hey, this Ricky King Russell or this Ricky Russell guy is pretty darn good?
There was the Ricky Raves era.
Ricky Raves, okay.
That was the rock band era. I was in a fairly popular band that started playing in the 70s around here called Orphan Annie. And there was a band around here called Daddy Warbucks. And we loved Daddy Warbucks so much that we wanted to emulate them and as best we could. So, of course, naturally, Orphan Annie. And those were the days when you'd play in a club for a week. You'd pull in on a Wednesday and stay through Sunday. Yep. It's not like that anymore. It's all one-night stands. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You go and play, pack up and go home. But that's when I really started in earnest. So I would say probably in my my very early 20s, 20, 21 years old. But there were bands before that played jobs, played some high school dances and stuff like that.
When did the King get added to your name? Tell that story a little bit.
Okay, I was lucky enough to be covered by the press a little bit in my career, and a wonderful writer for the Boston Globe by the name of Steve Morse. Steve Morse befriended me, and we got to know one another a little bit. Steve wrote an article about me that was featured in the Globe, and was nice enough to call me the kingpin of Boston blues. So naturally, I figured since we have a Duke Robillard and a Ronnie Earl, then we might as well have a Ricky King.
Well, you have certainly...
And plus, influenced by the three great kings, Freddie King, Albert King, B.B. King.
B.B. King. Well, you certainly have lived up to your name. Now, as you were coming along, what musical influence did you pick up? Did you latch on to any particular performer or any particular style? Because you know as well as I, there are many blues styles.
In the late 60s, okay, so I had a formative idea of what the blues was, at least, from hearing Jimmy Reed and John Lee and Ray Charles. You know, so I was lucky enough to at least know about that. But as I was a teenager, in the late 60s, there was a blues boom with Hendrix and Jeff Beck and Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. So it was kind of a natural progression to look at the records, especially the Zeppelin records and Jeff Beck and the Yardbirds, and you look at the album and go, oh, I wonder who that is, and then you go, oh wow. So you find out who Howlin' Wolf was, you found out who Muddy Waters was. You know what I mean? You look back, and then so it was a sort of a backwards progression to go out and ferret those guys out, and then you go, oh, so that's where they got it. You know what I mean? If you listen to Led Zeppelin's "Bring It On Home," it's a really short hop from that to Sonny Boy Williamson. You know what I mean? A lot of people have accused them actually.
Very cool. Now, as you know, this show moves along very, very quickly, but I think that it would give the folks at home a good opportunity right now to hear you play. And I know that you have written some songs and you've done 4 CDs. What are you going to play for us today?
I'm going to play one of my original numbers, and I'll give it kind of a little bit of the Jimmy Reed treatment here today.
All right.
And it's one of my tunes, and it's called Sad Day.
Sad Day. So why don't you go over there and get set up?
Thank you, Frank.
And, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to be in for a treat. And if you ever get an opportunity to go out and see Ricky King Russell, and we're going to get to some of the venues and some of the places where he plays in a little bit, you are going to be in for a big treat. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Ricky King Russell.
It was early in the morning when I heard my baby cry. It was early in the morning when I heard my baby cry. It was a sad, sad day when I told my baby goodbye. Cried, Lord, sweet Papa, gonna be the end of me. Cried, Lord, sweet Papa, gonna be the end of me. I'll be a crazy broken woman now, lonely as a fool can be. But you know that's just the way she wants to be. Hey baby, look at here, say goodbye to me now. Yeah. Thank you.
Wow, Ricky King Russell. I told you at home, folks, that you were going to be in for a treat, and I don't think that I disappointed you. Once again, Ricky King Russell.
Thank you, Frank.
Nicely done, Ricky.
Thank you, sir.
So, you had a little story about that song. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that one actually, I tend to write songs that I fall in love sometimes with other people's songs. So there's a song by a fellow named Little Junior Parker that called Mother-in-Law Blues that I tried to sort of give my best little spin on.
Okay.
On that guy.
Well, you've done good. Now, how does it feel playing solo like that versus having a bunch of excellent musicians behind you accompanying?
Actually,
because if you take that song, folks, and put him around, surround him with a great band, you are going to be in for a treat.
Well, you know, I love playing with my band, no doubt about that. Ricky King Russell and the Cadillac Horns being the ultimate expression of that. But and actually that song was on our second CD. But you know, there's a certain freedom that goes along with a solo. You can interpret things a little bit differently.
Right.
Later in the show, I have another song that I'd like to do, and it's one that I wrote for my girl. It's called Basic Black, and that's had more than one permutation, but today it'll get a little bit of a different one because I'm on my own.
Well, that's going to be great. But as you can see, time is winding down. Now, Ricky, you know, you were part of a great blues festival that was held right here in Stoughton. And we were able to capture quite a bit of that on film. And Roxanne, if you could cue up that video that we have, it is of you and the great Jerry Portnoy. I understand who is a great friend of yours, and you can chat a little bit about
the
that.
great Harold Garner. And you all know this tune is his most famous.
This is a kitten up a tree, and I feel like I'm clinging to a cloud. I can't understand, I get misty just holding your hand. Walk my way, and 1,000 violins begin to play. Or is it just the sound of your hello, of that music I hear? I get misty just knowing you're near.
Here comes the big finish. Misty.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, that was the great Ricky King Russell and Jerry Portnoy.
You know, Jerry's the only guy I know that has a gold record on his wall.
A gold record on his wall.
From his time with Eric Clapton on the From the Cradle tour.
You beat me to the punch on that. Yeah. I mean, you go in Pete's, every time I walk in there, first of all, I love that CD. That's a fantastic CD. They have that big poster in there, and looking at the credits, there's Jerry Portnoy.
Jerry Portnoy.
Okay,
he was with Eric for 6 or 7 years, and 6 or 8 years with the Great Muddy Waters before that.
Yeah, yeah. So I know you and Jerry are pretty good friends, and he showed up
We have a wonderful blues duo too. We go out and do some work from time to time.
Yeah, I saw you one time. You hold court at different places. So why don't you take a couple of seconds and first of all talk about your CDs.
Oh.
And then why don't you tell
take a moment and show off our newest one. This is called the Moon is Rising, and it's available certainly at all of our gigs, and most any place I play I have one. And the story surrounding this one is this CD started some time ago, and I put it out in sort of a somewhat incomplete thing in the hurry to get it out. I wanted to take it further, but I didn't have the time, so it came out as that. And then, as you know, a couple of years ago, I had an accident, and I was sort of, while I was mending, my good friend who recorded this for us, Bill Smith at Club 39 Studios, sent me an email when I finally could read, and said, hey, I ran across those tracks, and I've converted them to the digital world, and if you want to do something with it, then let's go ahead with it. So I got a hold of my horn section leader and arranger and trumpet player, Doc Channonhouse, and got him to write up some charts for some of the stuff, and got the horn section together and went in and put the horns, added some chrome, let's just say.
Very cool.
And got the great Alison Lazance to come in and do some piano work, and I did a new mix down and a revitalized thing. So this is sort of a revisiting of a session that was in the past, but boy, it sounds good to me, and I hope everyone out there would like to get one and hear it.
And they can go to your website, www.rickykinrussell.com.
You can reach me there.
And also, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the local venues that you play? And I know there's a little project that might be getting dear to your heart. You might
actually,
want to talk about that.
I've been enjoying. There's a place that's local to me. I live on the South Shore, and there's a place that's local to me called Pete's Bar and Grill in Quincy, Mass. That I really like the way the room sounds there. I like what they have going on there. Satch Romano that books the place has been good to me and lately, and we've been enjoying a nice run there for the last almost month. I'm going to appear there this Thursday night with Satch as part of the House Rockers. You attended my birthday party there last week. The week before we had a party.
You missed a good one.
The week before that we had a welcome home party for Gil Correa after his South American tour.
That was fantastic as well.
And so I'm enjoying working with those guys. I'm enjoying playing in the room. It's a good sounding room. There's plenty of places to sit. Chef Levi puts out a nice product as far as the food, and the drinks are very reasonable. Greg and his people there are doing a good thing.
Well, and folks at home, if you ever want to see our esteemed director, Roxanne Morris, out of the booth and on the dance floor, she can shake it up pretty good, Ricky.
Did a good job.
She can shake it up pretty well. She was out there rocking and rolling both of those parties. Yeah. But as far as your music goes, where do you think the next step for you is? Because everyone seems to be aspiring to do something else. What's next on the plate for Ricky King Russell?
What I'm hoping to do with this disc is I'm hoping to actually sort of get out and run with it a little bit. There are a lot of really great small theaters. I was lucky enough to play at the Larcom Theater in Beverly last Saturday night with my good friend Parker Wheeler and Bob Worthington, my bass player, and my good friend Ken Gardner Jr. on drums. And we did the opening set for Eli Paperboy Reed and our friend from Memphis, Tennessee, Victor Wainwright. But it was a great small theater. There are so many of these things. The Amazing Things in Framingham. The Zeiterion, the Blue Ocean up north. There's just a lot of really great, those kind of venues. I never want to give the club thing up because I really enjoy the club thing because of the interaction with the audience and you know what I mean, the immediacy of that. But the bigger venue where I can really be comfortable, have a little room to move around. Sometimes it's a little tight in the club, and you don't have can really stretch out. And usually those kind of venues offer you the budget that I can carry the 3-piece, 4-piece horn section, 4-piece and a keyboard. The ultimate expression of my music is big band blues. Yeah. Nobody around here really does big band blues.
Well, when you get the horns together and you guys start wailing, that's pretty cool. Now, with your illustrious career, is there anyone that you have not played with that you really wish that you could played with? Let's say someone living or dead. That
I would first have to say that if I had the opportunity to play one time with B.B. King, that would have meant a lot to me.
B.B. King?
B.B. King,
yeah. I know that you took that pretty hard. You could also follow Ricky on Facebook as well, but I know that you had quite some incredible sentiments out there regarding B.B. King.
He along with T-Bone Walker and Muddy Waters, the greats, was one of my biggest influences. I've always just tried to have some of B.B. in my playing. It's hard to, as a blues player, to not. It's kind of like, you know what I mean, the tree of the blues or electric blues comes from T-Bone Walker on one side and the great Charlie Christian in the jazz world on the other. So that's electric. And then very rapidly, it was B.B. King and such leading out of that, especially with the more uptown style of blues. So
cool.
He was the originator and very formative.
Before we close the show and have you take us out with a song, I had Anthony Gerasi here a couple of weeks ago, and
wonderful player.
Fantastic. I sprung a little something on him. I gave him a little word association game, and I'm going to do the same thing with you. First thing that comes to your mind when I say the word blues?
Life.
Life.
My life.
It's not surprising.
It's my life, baby.
That's a great answer. But ladies and gentlemen, normally we would bring this show down to the end, but I am not going to deprive you of hearing Ricky King Russell one more time. He is going to be taking us out. So Ricky, I definitely want to thank you so much for coming on.
I'd like to thank Frank Walsh for doing this and Smack TV for having us, and you're doing a great thing. We appreciate it out there.
Thank you, Ricky. So while Ricky's setting up there, folks, I want to thank Roxanne Morse for directing us, Michael Hammond, Dave Young, Jeffrey Pickett for their assistance. So until the next time, I want you to get out there and support your local musicians, especially Ricky King Russell. You will be in for a treat. So until then, tune in and tune on.
Well, sweet little mama, with a face like that, you're gonna give this old man a love attack. Hey boys, well, that's a fact. But there's nothing like a blonde-haired woman in basic black. Well, black seed stockings, perfume divine. Wanna look at you, baby, and I lose my mind. Hey boys, well, 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 that's a fact. But there's nothing like a blonde-haired woman in basic